Hi everybody, Dan Illman, Matt Bernier, the DRF.com Formulator Race of the Day for Saturday, March the 4th is a very important Kentucky Derby prep at Gulfstream Park. Race number 13 at a mile and a 16th. It's the Grade 2 Fountain of Youth. Let's take a look at the field and remember, friends, head on over to the Race of the Day event page on DRF.com. Download those free Formulator past performances and handicap along with us in post position order in one of your sons, the number 1 Huracan Americo. You were very impressed with the way this horse won his second start in Peru.
It was just a culmination of things. The fact that it was a second lifetime start. He won a Group 1 against older horses. Mile and a half, I understand that, that's a little bit aggressive here, especially considering his debut was at 6.5. I have no illusions that this horse is going to be some sort of superstar, but he looked good going out there again. Mile and a half is kind of an anomaly. I don't know if he's going to be able to step with these horses. He's 50-1 in the morning line. I don't think he should be that high. No. But at the end of the day, I mean, you look at it from a Timeform US standpoint, he got a 96 in that race. He's going to need to step up in a big way.
Third horse came out of that race at least to win a Group 1, albeit on turf. You don't see horses, maidens, win their second lifetime start, stretching out from 6.5 to a mile and a half against Grade 1 horses. Who knows what he beats? Yeah. But again, at the end of the day, Huracan Americo acts like distance is going to be his friend. He's the kind of horse might get outrun a little bit earlier, maybe a big late run for a piece.
Yeah, I feel like you and I kind of talked about it a little bit. It feels like the connections, I would imagine they'd be thrilled with a nice sort of late move to run
out for the
third or fourth,
Derby.
Stretch out to that mile and an eighth, and they've made it clear they want to run in the Derby. So mile and a quarter should work for him.
Now, another horse that doesn't have a lot of early speed, and maybe the Gulfstream track profile could work against him, is the 2 Gunnevera, who's just a nice little horse. He only sold for $16,000 as a Keeneland yearling. He's now a graded stakes winner sprinting, a graded stakes winner around 2 turns. He won the Rich Delta jackpot to complete his 2-year-old campaign, and he ran just fine in the Holy Bull last time out in a race where Irish Warcry controlled the pace. There might be a little more gas for him to attack this time.
There should be, on paper anyway, much more pace to run at. I thought there were a lot of things that went against Gunnevera. He had to be much closer to the pace. I thought Javier did everything right. He got shuffled a little bit on the far turn, still overcame that, came on again at the end. He's gotten into a little bit of a bad habit of changing leads a little bit late, and I don't know if it's a physical thing or it's just him, but I think this is a nice horse. I've doubted him for a long time. I'm starting to buy into him.
Second off the laugh worked very nicely for him. 10-point buyer improvement when he won the Delta jackpot. The 3-horse Quinientos, now he's 50-1 in the morning line, and deservedly so.
No disrespect. I liked this horse when we went over, I believe it was a Wednesday race of the day going a few weeks back, but I mean, this is a far cry from that group. He should be 100-1.
He's improved. He's paired up Buyer Tops in his last 2 races, but still a far cry from what the usual suspects in this race can run. The 4 is Talk Logistics, a horse that was beaten 14 by Irish Warcry in the Holy Bull. Really couldn't see much of an excuse. Maybe he was closer to the pace than expected, but he had to be considering the pace was slow. I know Mike Beer likes this horse on a cutback eventually, 100%. So do I.
100%. I'm thinking Pate Mile, something like that. Become that one-run sort of one-turn horse. I just don't like him here.
Beasley, the number 5, is one of a few Keeneland graduates in this race. He's yet to finish out of the exacta from 3 lifetime starts. He faced a very promising runner and battalion runner most recently, but his participation in the Fountain of Youth is still in doubt.
Sounds like they may go to Tampa Bay next weekend, which, looking at how everything is unfolding, I can't fault them there. I thought this horse was really game on the inside. That was not an easy trip that he worked out there most recently against Battalion Runner, and whenever we do see Battalion Runner come back, it looks like he's a nice one for Pletcher. So if he goes here, he's interesting, and he's obviously going to be part of the pace. If he goes to Tampa, he's going to be on the short list of contenders.
Most accomplished runner in this race is the number 6 Practical Joke for Chad Brown, who won 2 prestigious Grade 1 races, the Hopeful and Champaign in New York last year, before getting dusted a bit by Classic Empire in the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, his first start around 2 turns. He's trained by Chad Brown. Here's one of 3 formulator facts we have for the race of the day. Past 2 years, 3-year-old dirt routers off a moderate layoff, 36%, a 231 ROI. This horse was able to buy her 90 as a 2-year-old, finishing ahead of 3 Rules, who's in this race, as well as a couple of next out winners, one of them Gormley, one of the top 3-year-olds in the country. He's a very logical horse.
I have no knocks against him. He hasn't done anything wrong in his career. I like that he was a little bit closer in that Breeders' Cup Juvenile, and he had I didn't think it was an easy trip. He was wide throughout for the most part, and you look and see the races come back reasonably well, and the top 2, I think as 2-year-olds, the top 2 were the top 2, and then there was a big gap between them and everyone else. As 3-year-olds, we've seen Classic Empire stub his toe a little bit, no pun intended. We'll find out. Maybe Practical Joke takes that step forward.
Are you worried about distance with this horse? His big wins have come 7 furlong, 1-turn mile, the 1-turn mile race, a big pace that kind of set up for Practical Joke, although he was very game and did run very well. A lot of folks are thinking maybe he'll be a 1-turn kind of router down the road.
Yeah, look, I'm always, whether it's a Harlan's Holiday or a horse like this, Into Mischief, I'm always dubious about how far they want to go. And I can't argue with anyone that looks at that Breeders' Cup Juvenile and says, he was in striking range at the top of the lane, and they widened on him, and it seemed like he was getting a little bit choppy at the end. In Chad, I trust. I think this is a scenario where he's going to be ready for this race. How far he wants to go down the road, we'll find out. Mile and 16th, I think he can get it.
The number 7, 3 Rules won the first 5 races of his career, all over this Gulfstream track, including the $500,000 In Reality Stakes for Florida breds at this distance, although that field was a far cry from what he's facing here. He's gotten tested now in 2 open graded stakes races. The Breeders' Cup Juvenile, suppose he didn't handle the ship very well and then was very wide. He ran well last time out in the Swale.
He actually made me a believer. I never really loved him before the Swale, and I thought he ran very, very well that day into another Chad horse, Favorable Outcome, who I like quite a bit, going 1 turn. I think 3 Rolls is a nice horse. I think ultimately he's another one that'll be a 1-turn, whether it's a 7/8 or a 1-turn mile type. Pat Day Mile, Woody Stevens, those races. I don't like him going 2.
I agree. 2 might be stretching it a little bit, although he ran well in the Swale. Bob will start 4 wide entering the turn. You mentioned the Chad horse that beat him. Formulator fact for the 7. 3 Rules, past 5 years, 3-year-olds on dirt, second off the layoff. Not a great number, 0 for 22.
Yeah, look, I didn't love him going into it. If you really like this horse, you might be able to get a price. And
12 to 1 on the line.
Arguably from a figure standpoint, whether it's Timeform US or with the Buyer Speed figures, he's right there with the top contenders. So if you like him, no reason to get off.
New Jersey bred, the number 8 Irish War Cry, won his first 2 starts, but he just leapt onto the national scene with a big win over 2-year-old champion Classic Empire in the Grade 2 Holy Bull, and that Classic Empire emerged from that race with a foot issue, and Irish War Cry was able to control a measured pace. There's other speeds. He's going to have to sit, but at least we know he's versatile.
Yeah, that's the thing. You know, the career debut, I love that he came from so far out of it, and it seems like in each of the first 2 starts he was a little bit green, and even in the most recent one, I know he was out there on a very easy lead, all things considered. He was a little bit hard with the lead change. Rosario really had to get him over, and I think he's just learning. I love the fact that he extended down the lane. I think you and I have some minor differences in opinion of him. I think the sky's the limit. I don't know what he is just yet. I can understand where you fall, though. At this point, prove to me when things are a little bit more difficult for you.
Yeah, he had a nice easy lead, 24 opening quarter last time out. A race where the favorite got injured. Gunnevera was sort of taken out of his preferred running style. And after that, who was in the race? But he at a shortish price, I don't want him. He's a very logical contender based off the Holy Bull. Todd Pletcher, always dangerous at Gulfstream. He's got the 9, Made You Look. First time dirt for Made You Look, who was probably best in the Kitten's Joy last time out. Stymied by pace and traffic.
Yeah, he had a brutal, brutal trip most recently. Other than that, you draw a line through that race, and it wasn't a bad effort. He's done nothing wrong, really. You look at him, I think he's a top-level sort of 3-year-old turf horse. If the dirt experiment doesn't work for him, I think you're looking at that turf race that's going to be on the Derby undercard for the 3-year-olds, because right now, I mean, he looks like he's a good type.
He does have some pedigree on the bottom of his bloodlines. The dam's a 3/4 sister to Harlington, won the Grade 2 Gulfstream Park Handicap on dirt. The dam's a half to Grand Reward, who won the Oaklawn Handicap, a Grade 2. And the second dam, of course, the great Serena Song, 11 Grade 1 wins on the main track. So some pedigree and distance isn't going to be an issue. Takaful, the number 10, so impressive, winning his career debut sprinting. Nothing's gone right since.
Isn't Takaful kind of the unknown of the X Factor, the wild card, let's put it that way, because the career debut, he was brilliant, I thought. I didn't think there was anything else you could say other than that, considering it was his first start. And the Remsen, maybe it was too much too soon. He got a pretty easy lead, all things considered, and he just packed it in badly. And then the Jerome was a disaster. Maybe you want to give him the wet track excuse. If for some reason he can run, he's going to be on the lead. I can't imagine there's a scenario where he's not.
He's going to be on the lead, but boy, that last race was terrible. Maybe it was simply the muddy track excuse at the end of the day. I just couldn't find the excuse against Motown. Maybe it was a runoff in the early portion of that race, stretching out. You got to give credit. Kieran, you know, is a great trainer.
Going on with
He's
him.
showing a lot of confidence in this horse, shipping all the way down here, getting out of New York. He's going to show some speed. He's going to be a price. Getting back to Made You Look real quick, formulator fact for Todd Pletcher. Past 5 years, 3-year-olds, turf to dirt route, third off the layoff. Good numbers, 33% and a 465 ROI. The 11 is looking for 8. Private purchase since his sprint maiden win at Gulfstream on January the 28th. He beat a couple of next out winners, but both of them won on turf.
Yeah, and the Buyers themselves weren't all that good, 64 and 69. Look, from a figure standpoint, he fits in here. He's not too far off. The interesting thing is going to be to see, one, can he stretch out? You look at the pedigree, you would imagine that won't be a problem. He never changed leads most recently, and that's a concern for me anytime you got to go 2 turns.
Now in the barn of Mark Casse. Let's take a look at our top selections for the Grade 2 Fountain of Youth, the formulator race of the day. You're going with Gunnevera. 7-2 in the morning line. I think he drifts.
I hope he does. I made him 9-2, and I think there are just a couple of things. If the pace does develop, which it looks like it should on paper, he should get a more fair run, I think. And I actually like the fact that it didn't completely stop him when he got shuffled on the far turn. Usually these one-run closers, they don't have a lot of agility. I think he fits the bill. Again, I didn't love him, but he just continues to get a little bit better. I'm starting to buy into him.
Like you, I'm a little bit dubious about Practical Joke's long-term Derby potential. I think the distances might get to him, but I think Channel F him cranked for 1 mile and a 16th. He ran well as a 2-year-old, and I think he's going to get some pace to attack in this spot. I'm going to go with the 6 Practical Joke, 3-1 in the morning line. You went 2, 8, 6, and 1. I'm going to try to get Huracan Americao into the number. 6, 1, 8, 7 for me in the Grade 2 Fountain of Youth Stakes. If you are playing the star-studded graded stakes packed card at Gulfstream on Saturday, a $300 sign-up bonus is waiting for you at drf.com/trifecta when you become a DRF Bets member. Approximate post time for the Fountain of Youth, 6:05 Eastern. We'll be on for expanded live coverage on DRF Live, live.drf.com beginning Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. We'll see you then.